Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Angel, and I am a preacher and teacher for the Loudon Church of Christ in Loudon, Tennessee. And I am so excited to be joined today by my friend Keith Stonheart, who's going to be leading us in a series of studies coming up soon, April 4th through the 6th. We call it our Weekend in the Word. Last year, we had Saif Al Safir from North Georgia joining us to share about his conversion from Islam to Christianity. That was a great weekend of studies. We learned a lot. We learned a lot about the power of the gospel and the need to be serious thinkers about things that are most important. And those lessons are all preserved on our website for you to go check out at loudoncoc.org. But we are very excited this year to be joined by Keith Stonheart, who's going to lead us in a series of studies on the power of the gospel and genuine discipleship. I appreciate Keith's taking some time to join me today to preview those studies coming up here soon. So, Keith, welcome. Thanks so much for the time. And why don't you go and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and how you got there?
I'm Keith Stonehart. I've been the preacher and minister at the Fultondale Church of Christ. Fultondale is about 5 miles north of Birmingham, so we're it's easier for me to tell people Birmingham, but we're Fultondale to be specific. And I've been here we're been here 12 years, going on year number 13. And honestly, 13 years ago, I wouldn't have believed that this would even be on our radar. I was not a full-time preacher before this. Had not even really considered being a full-time preacher before this, but I had gone to Florida College, Alabama camp at the request of some friends in 2010. I got to know some of the folks from Fultondale at camp and had the opportunity to speak one night. It was unscheduled. The guy that was supposed to speak had a migraine headache, and so I took his place that night and threw something together within a very short amount of time. Had to put something together, and I think sometimes nerve energy that I have comes across as passion. Really, I was extremely nervous, and but it seemed to go over well, and some of the guys there at camp that worship at Fultondale had asked if I could come speak a couple times over there, and I did, and then they offered me the opportunity to come work full time in 2012, and I would have never ever thought that preaching was something that was going to be on my radar. And so the last 12, almost 13 years have just been a true blessing for me. Been the best thing that we ever did, and it was the thing that I didn't know that I needed, that I really needed. So we're here now, coming up on year number 13, and things are great.
Yeah, the Lord certainly provides. So random for a guy to have a migraine and for that migraine to turn into the life that you have now.
Right? Did not see that coming.
Nope, certainly not. Your story is like a lot of preachers that I know, even myself. I never intended on dedicating my life in ministry, but it is where we are. We're thankful for the blessings of the opportunities, and God certainly is good and provides sometimes in very mysterious ways, and sometimes that
That's
manifests
right.
even in a migraine.
That's
So
right.
we're excited to have you, as I mentioned, come and to speak with us about the power of the gospel and about
Yes.
genuine discipleship. One of the things that's always impressed me about you, Keith, is your genuine nature. We've only met maybe a couple times. I think one time might have been at lectures. You were
At
you were
lectures.
you were bumming around with a dude named Terry Francis, and
Yeah, that guy.
we know each other. And that's the weird thing about social media. The time that we live in, you can see somebody all the time on Facebook,
That's right.
and yet have never met them actually in person. Yet you meet them, you feel like you already know them because of the way they present themselves on social media. And as I mentioned, the way that I would just describe you if somebody were to ask is just genuine. You're a real guy, and I appreciate so much so many of the posts that you make and the comments that you make on other people's posts that are just real. That they speak to the genuine nature of what it's like to be a human, the things that we wrestle with. You approach things not from a this is going to sound terrible from a Christian perspective, but I don't mean that. I don't mean that at all
No, I
in a
understand.
negative sense. But it's just a real perspective. It's not this thing that's glossed over for many people who grew up in church and stuff. So I just appreciate that about you, and thought you'd be a great person to come and speak to us about just the genuineness of living life as a Christian in the world that we're in today.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I realize, and it's kind of a joke around here that I often tell people that I'm better in small doses. So social media really works for me in
Hmm.
that aspect. But I didn't become a Christian until I was 28. And prior to being a Christian, I'd been, I don't want to say atheist, probably more agnostic would be correct, but there was definitely a lack of faith, a questioning of things. And so when I became a Christian, that sort of continued on this idea of questioning everything. Like I wanted to know, well, why do we do this? Okay, you're telling me this is what we do, but why? And so that sort of train of thought stays with me. That if we're trying to be genuine in our faith and to be real, then we have to be real. And one of the issues that I had with Christianity growing up was I saw a lot of hypocrisy, just with people like I went to high school with. For instance, I went to high school with people who, Sundays they were at their churches doing the things that they did, and they would sort of keep that persona up all week at school, but then on Friday night they would either come to the show that my band was playing with their fake IDs and drinking and stuff like that, or they would come to the parties at my house. And so I saw this level of hypocrisy where I was like, okay, if you're going to do this, you should do it. Even though it wasn't something that I wanted at that time in my life, I felt like I was like, okay, well, if you're going to choose this and live this way, then you should really live this way. And so whenever my wife and I and our family, when we became Christians, that was still the same sort of MO that, hey, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this. But I still question everything. I want to know that what I'm doing is not only pleasing to God, but that it's good for us. And so a lot of times that puts me in a mindset of understanding the motives.
Hmm.
That I don't want to just go through the motions. That okay, well, if we have to do this, then I want to know why we do it, so that I'm motivated properly. That I'm not just putting up a facade.
Right.
One of the things I've talked about before is what I call church face,
Yes.
where there's 15 or 20 minutes after church every Sunday where I can put on church face and show you who I want you to see, as opposed to maybe being real and someone saying, hey, how are you doing? And instead of just saying, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm great," I actually say, I'm really having a hard time right now. And I think there's obviously, like I said, it's better in small doses. I realize that. I realize that it's hard to, to be that sort of vulnerable or open maybe all the time. But I think it's vital. I see that a lot in the first century church, and so I appreciate you saying that and recognizing that. It's something that I am thoughtful about. I wonder sometimes if it's too much, and so I'm glad to hear that it doesn't come across that way to you.
It probably is too much to the people who would rather wear church face, and
Yeah,
it probably does bother them a bit. But for those who are yearning and just thirsting for real faith, I want you to know it is a breath of fresh air, and it is greatly appreciated. So much
thank you.
so, we often focus on the other people, like the Pharisees, who in Mark
Yes,
7, Jesus rebukes them for worshiping Yahweh with their lips, but their heart being far from Him. And it's easy to look at other people and identify that in them, like you just said about the people that you went to high school with and such. But man, it's so much more difficult to look in the mirror and see that we ourselves are wearing the mask of faith and
yeah,
religiosity, but really it's nothing more than a surface level effort, and the heart is truly not in it. And we want to be people who everything that we do, it starts in the heart, and
that's
it
right.
grows out from there. That is truly, that faith is something that we've really embraced to our core, and then everything we do from then on, every word that we speak, every thought that we have, every action we use of our bodies, it is an outpouring of the love that we have for God and Jesus in our hearts. So thank you so much for that. I'm looking at our schedule that's coming up for the weekend in the Word. You're going to start on Friday, give us an introductory lesson about finding your people, and then
Yes.
Saturday we're going to talk about these are your titles. You said,
Hmm.
I am a statistic. And we're going to talk about
Yes.
temptation, and then borrow a little bit from Jordan Peterson with the We Who Wrestle with God. I'm actually looking straight to my left. I have that book that my sister got me for
So good.
Christmas.
Yeah,
Now that
that
you
that
said that,
that
I
book
actually need to
inspired.
read it. Now that you said it, I
Yeah,
need
that
to.
book inspired this lesson. That
Fantastic.
yeah.
So we'll do that on Saturday, and then we're gonna have a question and response session to finish out the day on Saturday. I will leave out for those who are present, and even those who might be joining in online. I'm going to leave the comment section open for you to ask for them to leave any questions. I'll leave some papers there in person for people to pick up and write questions. We'll have a little Q&R. And then Sunday, you'll have a couple lessons for us about having a rended heart and then the goodness of God. I was
Yeah.
singing that song in my head last night as I was thinking about getting on with you this morning. A beautiful song. I'm sure those be great thoughts. Do you have anything you want to share about any of these lessons specifically to give people just a little appetizer? Not a lot, just a
Yeah,
little
well, I
to
mean, basically,
their
I mean,
appetite
that Friday
going.
night, finding your people is sort of just an introduction to the community of God. I mean, that's really what it's about. I mean, I didn't know how much I needed people until I did.
Hmm.
When my wife and I became Christians, we were in a completely different lifestyle where I was in a rock band. She was a bartender, and so we had this whole circle of people that we just had to walk away from. And when we walked into the Mountain View Church of Christ, that's where we became Christians in Cumming, Georgia.
Great folks down there. Great folks.
Oh yeah, well, and those people they pulled us right in.
Hmm.
I mean, and so it's just a little bit about the experience of the way God never intended us to be alone,
Hmm.
and He gives us this community of people. And sometimes it's the one resource that we avoid the most, and we shouldn't. We should run to these people. And then Saturday, just a little bit of my conversion. I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit about it Friday night, but Saturday that lesson will really be about coming out of the rock and roll scene, so to speak, and atheism, and coming into faith, and how it really was that community of people. It wasn't just one person that I studied with. There was a network of people that were determined not to let Kelly and I fall through the cracks. And then, just talking about temptation, because that is really the thing. That's the struggle for every person. We're all tempted by something, and how that community of believers plays into helping keep us on track. And then, obviously, the third lesson on Saturday is that we who wrestle with God. The fact that we do, it's once you get beyond temptation, there's still this concept of um, owning our faith. That I wrestle sometimes with some of the aspects of what it is that we do and believe and live, and it's I think it's healthy to do that. And of course, I mean, that's what helps you take ownership of your faith. And then
Hey, if I could just interrupt you for just one
yeah,
second,
yeah.
Keith, about that. For those who might be listening, you just heard a preacher, someone who you might call a professional Christian. That's the way people view us sometimes. You just heard him say that he wrestles with God and that he wrestles with faith. And I'm going to assume, and forgive me for assuming if I'm incorrect here, in stating that, you're saying that you don't have it all figured out yet.
Oh,
That
not close.
you are still pursuing greater faith. So for those
Absolutely.
who might be listening, if you find yourself discouraged in thinking that, I've been a Christian for X number of years and I don't have it all figured out yet. Well, join the club.
Yeah.
None of us have it all figured out yet. So
Well,
so
we're all in
be
good company,
encouraged in
right?
that. That's exactly right. Be encouraged by the
We're
fact
in
that
good company, but
faith demands a continued wrestling and a never settling, a point where we're never satisfied with where we're at.
that's right. Well, you can, now I understand there's a larger context around this passage, but in Romans chapter 7, from about verse 14 on, Paul talks about the fact that he wrestles.
Hmm.
He never tells you what the struggle is, but it's something that clearly bothers him. He says, the things that I don't want to do is what I keep on doing,
Hmm.
and he's conflicted, and he's struggling with his heart is set on, the on God and his principles, but his body wrestles with the world. And so there's a constant sort of battle going on. And I think that when we become comfortable, we don't grow.
Right.
And truly, we should be growing all the time. You
Complacency
know,
kills.
um, it's kind of like marriage. In our current society, a lot of focus is put on the wedding day.
Hmm.
And you hear things said like, "Oh, this will be the best day of your life," and I'm thinking, well, where do I go from there?
Yeah.
If the best day of my marriage is the day that I get married, then what does that mean every day after that?
It's
It's the
downhill
same
all
thing
after
with
that, I
God.
guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So being a Christian, yeah, I mean, the day that I was baptized into Christ and I died to myself, that is truly one of the best days of my life, but it's not the best day. the best day of my life as a Christian ought to be the last day that I'm alive.
Hmm.
You know, that I've continued uphill, so to speak. You know, to give you just a visual that I've continued uphill, I've continued that walk of faith that should never be. It's not that there will be times where it is easier than others. I don't suggest that we should always be at war with ourselves, but there is an aspect of which, for me to grow, I have to push outside myself.
Right.
And that means I have to look inside myself to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
So,
So finish up on Sunday, then what should we talk about?
okay, on Sunday, the first lesson will be a rended heart, just talking about the fact that considering the things we talked about previously in the weekend, one of the things that I have wrestled with is the passage, that be holy as I'm holy.
Hmm.
Well, the truth is that none of us can be holy apart from God. You can't do that yourself. And so it's about how we're sanctified and the process of giving over and surrender. There really is a process. And I know that, sometimes in our circles, we don't like words like surrender or, or revival, because they sort of sound, like some of the other groups and whatnot. But the truth is that's what it's about. It's about
Absolutely.
surrendering.
Hmm.
And then the goodness of God is inspired by the song.
Hmm.
Um, we do a workshop at Florida College Alabama camp, and a couple years ago, the guy that I do the workshop with, he introduced me to. I'd never heard the song, and didn't play it for me. He just sent me the slides because I had to put them all together. And we have a song learning workshop where the campers come in, and it's a volunteer thing. No one has to do this, and so we know that the people that come there, they genuinely want to learn new hymns, and so we presented this song to them. And so Rob said, hey, he goes, hey, you know what? We're just going to sing through it one time, and then we'll listen to it, and then we'll go back and we'll learn the parts and all this. And of course, when they sang it the first time, they just about nailed it. I mean, it was, but I had never heard it. And thankfully, I was not facing anybody. My back was to them because I'm operating the slides and I'm recording it. And I was so moved by the tone of the song. This your goodness is running after me, and I that really goes all the way back to the first couple of lessons of
Right.
how there is an aspect in which God is like the father of the prodigal,
Hmm.
always looking off. And when you recognize that everything that has happened in my life that's good, it's because He's good.
Right.
And everything that happened in my life that was bad, I got through it because He's good.
Hmm.
And so it sort of caps the weekend off, really just kind of giving glory to God for anything that might be good about me. It's all about Him. My story is not about me; it's about Him. And I try to, I want to encompass that in the thing because a lot of these lessons, because they're very personal to me, I don't want to make it come off as they're about me. They're all
Hmm.
about Him, and it's about our struggle as human beings, relating to a good God, and so that's sort of the whole idea in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Yeah, all my life you have been faithful. All my
Yeah,
life you have been so, so good. I,
so
I,
good.
I love what you said. It's not about me, it's about him. And as I'm
Yeah,
looking through these lessons, find your people. Why? Well, find your people because that's where God can be found, is
that's
among
right.
his people. About being statistic. You're not you could have been so much a statistic, but here is God in his faithfulness. Why do we struggle against temptation and seek to repel it? Because that honors and glorifies God. All these lessons, they really just get back to the fact that God is at the center of everything that we do. Our faith
Yeah,
is built upon humility because our Savior, his character is built upon humility.
that's
So
right.
I'm just so excited for the studies we're going to have this weekend, or no, I shouldn't say this weekend because I guess depending on when somebody's listening to this, it might be this
That's right.
weekend.
It could be.
But April 4th through the 6th, Friday night, we're going to start with some singing. We do not have that song in our repertoire. And I don't even know how to go about figuring out how to get it, but I'm gonna see what I can do. We might talk offline, figure out how we can
I've
might be able
got
to get
I've
that
got the
song.
slides.
Okay.
I paid for them.
We might
So
we might we might talk about getting that figured out so we might be able to sing that on Friday night, maybe sing it on Sunday. But we'll talk about that. And then Saturday we're gonna have session at 10, a session at 11. We're gonna break to go to lunch at one of our family's houses here in Loudon, and then we'll come back at 2 for another session with the Q and R following that. And then Sunday at our normal times, 10 and 11, we'll meet and then after that we have a potluck. We'll have potluck at a local park here. Hopefully we'll have good weather. Hopefully the little yellow devil dust will not be in full effect yet, and we'll be able
Yeah,
to enjoy a great weekend together.
absolutely. Can't wait.
All right, Keith, do you have anything else you want to share with anybody? Any final little plea to invite them to come with us, come join us for that weekend?
Well, you know what? I think that anytime we have an opportunity to be with God's people, we should be.
Hmm.
I believe that that any opportunity you can avail yourself to be encouraged, to be strengthened, to maybe
Yes.
be convicted
Hmm.
about something, it's always a good thing, and it's because God is good. So,
Absolutely. He is. He is. And because he's good, we strive to be good.
right.
One of the brothers has a podcast. His name is Escape Kenny, what's his name?
Oh,
What's his
Kenny
name?
Embry,
Yeah, Kenny. His name. Be good and do good.
be good and do good.
I tell my
I've
girls
been
that
listening to
every
his
day at
podcast a
school.
couple times, and
Yeah.
I love. He always ends the episode with "What is good," and he
Hmm.
makes you really look at your definition of good
Right.
versus the true standard of good,
Hmm.
and it's I love Kenny. I love what
Yeah.
he does.
That tagline, be good and do good. Tell my girls that
Yep.
every morning, whenever they're hopping out of the van. Hey, I love you. Be good and do good today. I think they listen
Yep.
for the most part. Their mama's a good mama, so I appreciate them, and we appreciate you. Thanks so much again for taking some time to join me today, and I hope this will be a blessing to folks, and that it will encourage them to join us. Maybe they're not in Loudon though. If you're not in Loudon, don't worry. Our plan is to live stream these studies, and then of course they'll be preserved on our YouTube and Facebook pages, and they'll also be preserved on our website as well, loudoncoc.org. You can go there, loudoncoc.org. You go there and see the full schedule, and also you can send us any messages through the website or through Facebook if you have any questions about the weekend coming up, April 4th through the 6th, talking about the power of the gospel and genuine discipleship with Keith Stonheart. Keith, have a great rest of your day. God bless
You too.
you. Let me encourage you to be good and do good, and tell our watchers to do the same thing. Please be good and do good today. And we hope you can join us for our weekend in the Word coming up April 4th through the 6th. Take care and God bless.